Hello. I decided to make this video because so many people within the LDS framework commented about the general conference that occurred this past week on October 4th and 5th. I had no intentions of watching it, tuning in, or even making this video. However, the day before, I received an invite, a personal text from one of my friends, their family, to come over and watch it with them and enjoy breakfast. And I recognized, I said, okay, fine. I only ever explore a paradigm 3 times. This will be the 4th time, but I will do it because there's so much outpouring of people that want to hear my perception of it. And so I can be moved to action based on that. Normally it takes like the merging of 3 black holes energy to fire 1 neuron in my head and to get me to move, right? You don't want to know what is required to even get me to get up to go to the bathroom or feed myself. Which, by the way, I went to McDonald's because it's my favorite comfort food. Okay? So thank you, McDonald's, for sponsoring this video. And also, I got a Flying Embers hard kombucha probiotics. I was gonna honestly get a bottle of wine out and dedicate it to the Catholics, because some people in the comments can't perceive that every paradigm that the humanity currently utilizes is all sacred and equal. So this alcohol is in sponsorship, thank you, to Catholicism. All right, I took some notes because I want to make sure I stay on track here. I'm going to start with the beginning of it. I didn't watch it in totality because we had some connection issues towards the end. I think after the, was it the female? Or there was one more speaker after her that talked about mathematics and physics. He was the one, and I apologize, I didn't write down their names. But he was the one that I think that was when the connection went out. But to start, the choir and the music. I love hearing that, and I was so moved. It was hard for me to hold back tears because there's something so extraordinary about a group of humans that get together and harmonize their voices to such a melodious tune that it carries this frequency into the mind to help prepare you to receive the words and messages of the speakers that followed. And it was so profound to think about because, right, you have all these people, lots of them, they were beautiful, all these individual people with individual lives, problems, journeys, whatsoever. And they all come together, and to have their voices, the sound waves that came from human beings in synchronicity, is nothing short of miraculous. It was beautiful. And it's equivalent to basically if you go to a monastery, a Buddhist monastery, where they play they hit the large bowls or whatever that create sound waves in their temples. And the purpose of that is because that frequency, that vibration that travels through the airs and hits your ossicles and your mind processes, it puts you into a place of peace and tranquility to calm all the thoughts that you have going on, to help you reach a level of peace where you can receive things without bias or emotion attached to it. And that's the same thing when any sort of music emphasizes the human voice. And it was remarkable. But that organ, man, when I saw those 2 men playing on the organ, I was like, those are some big pipes, okay? That's a big organ. If you sat on those pipes and they played an F sharp, you would have a good time in more ways than one. You would actually have spiritual, mental, and physical fulfillment. I gotta throw some jokes in there, and I don't even know what note an F sharp makes, but whatever. With how big that organ was, I think people can understand what I'm trying to say. So I will go on to the first speaker. I again apologize for his name. I don't recall it. I believe he was 85, spoke very passionately. And I believe he was the one that spoke on temperance. And temperance is a unique thing, right? So if you think about temperance, it's basically the child of discernment and patience. So if discernment and patience had a baby, it would make temperance. So discernment is required for being able to distinguish how you express yourself in a way that doesn't come off as, how should I say, detrimental to the cognitive development of, others and yourself. And so when he spoke on temperance, I was a bit perturbed and irritated because he spoke one-sided. He spoke of joy, love, all the positive things. But again, temperance is the baby, the child of patience and discernment. And to hold in, he mentioned anger, and to hold in these feelings of anger, despair, sadness, yada, 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 is not showing temperance. Because someone that practices temperance is able to articulate themselves, articulate their anger, their frustrations, their irritations in a way that doesn't necessarily invoke feelings of shame or embarrassment to another based on utilization of words alone. How others perceive your words, that's on them, right? But if you're able to practice temperance, you're able to express the totality of emotions that a human being is capable of expressing and feeling in a way that demonstrates that you are not biased to which the phases of duality in which you contrive your mind to or you perceive the world. And so that was unique. But then with him, his words were so passionate, and they come from a place of experience, of suffering and despair, and recognizing the abyss of suffering and what you can experience when you're learning, right? Learning's never easy. When you're in a state of learning, it sucks. It feels like you're drowning, especially if you're doing it alone. So his words came from, again, a place of inspiration of what he has personally felt. And then the next speaker, oh gosh, I don't recall. So I'm going to go out of order. There's like 3 speakers I want to speak on. There was an African-American man or a darker skinned pigmented man, and then a woman, and then a Brazilian man, I believe, and then the mathematician, guess what I was for. The African-American man, I loved his words. I don't quite recall what he said, but I did want to remark that I love that they included someone of different skin color and tone like that, because if you look at the fertility of the earth, right? If you look at the color of his skin, that's the type of soil that you want to plant seeds into. That type of soil, if a soil was the color of his pigmentation of his skin, you would have you could put anything into that ground and it would grow. It would bear fruit. And so it's so ironic that even racism exists, because the skin color of which the earth mimics to create fruit and produce for human beings in itself to eat is the exact same color of that skin. If you have white soil or white colored dirt, you're going to have issues. You're not going to grow shit. All right? Pardon my French. You're not going to grow anything. So it's ironic that, racism exists and people can't perceive the sacredness of all life, of all human life. So that was unique. Okay, here, you can have some of this. Sorry, yes, I am getting a little perturbed by humanity's actions. So, the next speaker, the Brazilian man. That's when I started paying attention and noticing something, or patterns. Oh, apologize, hold on, one more thing. Back to the first guy, the way, and I pointed this out to the people I was with, the way he spoke about temperance and the way he phrased it when someone left the church, and he talked about, when anyone talks about another human being in a way in which their words create a meaning that shows embarrassment or shame of another, I have issues with it. Because all life is sacred. All life, including every human on this planet, is sacred. And for that man who is an elder, a leader of the church, a leader of a beautiful religion and paradigm, to say something like that about another human being irritated me. And I will leave it there, and that is why I went over the definition of what temperance actually, in the totality of it. The woman, I forgot what she talked about. Oh, hold on. Prior to that, it was the Brazilian man. Oh, and he was so remarkable. And I recognized, right, when he started telling his story, which another thing I pointed out, if you look at the speakers, you would see a common theme, because the majority of them spoke about stories of a female, of women. And so it's very curious, right, that all these people that made their own, and this has been vetted by the church itself, I would assume, before they went up there and spoke. But I don't think all of them caught that all of them had a theme of female-oriented. And they also wore purple. Purple has a lot of symbolism in religion. So that's unique. And I think the choir wore green too. Again, unique to the fertility and the nourishment that nature itself provides. Green is symbolic of that, and purple symbolizes a bunch of other things. But the Brazilian man, I started recognizing, I perked up when he started getting emotional, when he started telling the biblical story about a female. And I immediately said, after a couple words or whatever, a couple minutes, I said, he's talking about either his mother or his wife. He's talking about some significant female in his life and how much she means to him. And then if you look at his words, he transitioned from that really emotional and very personal story to him that was biblical in nature. And then he talked about his wife and how he went to a meeting where people were giving their testimonies or whatever. And so I said, that was about his wife. He was honoring his wife, and he was expressing his thankfulness for his wife in that biblical story. But then after that, he started talking about, what did he talk about? How he went somewhere and he heard a bunch of different people giving their stories, their personal testimonies. And he started getting emotional. He started getting emotional and really speaking from a place of empathy about how these people, with all the pain and turmoil and hardship that they've endured in their life, it was like he could feel all of it. And when he felt all of it, it made him feel seen and understood, which is why he got emotional about it. But then he says, even though they expressed all these terrible and traumatic things that have occurred in their life, they always ended with being strong and telling their testimony and continuing on. And it made me want to do the same, or something like that. And it was tragic, because it was almost as if it was him trying to reach out and be like, hey, someone please recognize, help me understand what has occurred in my life that I don't understand. Why is this suffering occurring? Why is the world like this right now? I don't understand. And I'm losing hope and faith because I can't make sense of it. But seeing them stay strong and continue believing that there is a reason this is occurring is the reason I am strong as well. So that is very impactful. And if you look at all of them, they all spoke authentically and genuinely from something that they're feeling inside of them. And the physicist, for instance, I'm jumping around again. The physicist at the end, who majored in math and science, and he told a story, physics and math, about when he was an undergrad and he struggled with the complexity of it. And he saw it as a challenge where he wanted to quit, and he kept going on, which is thankful for, right? Which was amazing. But then it was almost like he had this significant milestone in his life where he found the motivation, he found the effort, he did it, he put in the work, he did all that, he faced his fears and he overcame them and majored in and had a beautiful life. But now he's towards the end of his existence as it currently exists right now. And I caught a feeling of pain and suffering and longing for answers that he couldn't find, not even within science. Let that sink in. This man was so devout to the different paradigms within humanity, right? You can't get much more paradoxical or contrasting between science and religion, and this man completely did both to the extremes. Yet his words at the end, oh, they expressed grief and sorrow. Grief and sorrow. And that was intriguing. That was very intriguing for him to open up that way. But perhaps not recognize that's what he was expressing. And the female. Oh, okay. The final one. The female. Who was wearing purple also. She... Oh, you know what? I'm getting my people confused. Someone spoke about some man that came to some woman's house in a village and needed a place to stay. And so this woman, they're both strangers, and this woman allowed this man, this foreign stranger man, to come stay in her home and let him go on. The story was told using different language, but at the basic simple version of that, that's what occurred. A stranger, that is a man, approached a woman saying, hey, I need a place to, sleep tonight. Do you have a bunk? Do you have somewhere, blah, 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 blah. And a stranger woman said, yes, come into my home and you can stay here. So what does that exemplify? That exemplifies a level of trust that humanity hasn't seen in a hot minute. Let's just say that. Because how many people would allow someone that knocked on their door at who knows what time or showed up and said, hey, you don't know me, but can I stay in your home tonight? I kind of have some stuff I'm working on, and I'm just passing through, and I just need a place to stay. Okay, yeah, exactly. So that demonstrates a thing that most people often overlook between the male and female, because males are normally associated with exploring curiosity and pursuing learning a little bit more aggressively and adventurously than females are. And there's a reason for that, because when curiosity explores and goes out, curiosity is unpredictable. It goes wherever it goes. And in order for curiosity to remain grounded in something that is relatable and gives them support and a sense of stability, it requires nurturing, and it requires a rational movement pattern. And that usually comes from the female, right? Curiosity can only explore if curiosity has a firm foundation in which it is allowed to launch off of. And so when the female doesn't recognize that, yes, you may be perceived as like background noise sometimes according to certain religions or certain perspectives of how people perceive women. But that's the beauty of it, because the foundation, the behind the scenes person that keeps the flow going doesn't require acknowledgement. And that's often why many women don't desire or don't speak out about necessarily needing that, even though they desire it. It's because at a certain subconscious level, the woman is the solace and the support for chaos and turmoil. And if you don't understand that, look at the state of the world and look at what gender has made the rules and has made, this state of things, existence. And that is not to say that women should be in charge or men should, whatever. No, it's about humans need to learn to recognize that all humans are sacred. Every life is sacred. And for this dichotomy to exist of this hierarchy or the superior or this stratification is redundancy and irrelevant. Because if you put them all down, you strip it down to the base, the foundation. What is the foundation if not human? Okay. I think that's all I have for my notes. what I described. Oh, and then, yeah, that's about it. So thank you for tuning in. This will be the last time that I explore the paradigm of LDS. I do not stick around in one spot for a reason, because I love learning about different things. I love learning about all of humanity. And for me to park myself into one fractal of the Mandelbrot set of existence is a disservice to what I desire out of my life. So I thank everyone for all the contributions and the comments and the overwhelming support and love that I have felt. However, it is time for me to move on to something else. And so this is my final parting gift to LDS. And also for you guys, this is my notes that I took. So you're welcome.